fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to another episode of the Falcoholic Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, here to bring you my Falcons takeaways from the NFL Combine, where we saw a lot of NFL prospects do a lot of work on the field in Indianapolis this past weekend. I apologize for the lack of pods over the last week, as I did end up taking an impromptu vacation because we finally got some snow here in upstate New York, so took advantage of that as I'm a big-time snow skier. If you follow my Twitter, I'm sure you will know that. So went ahead and took advantage of that weather and got out of here, but of course didn't have the Combine coverage on lock, so we're going to rectify that with today's show. We'll be going over my top guys, my top performers, basically the players who impressed me the most with their on-field work. I won't claim that I've watched, all the drills or anything like that as I was out of town, but I did definitely check in on the athletic testing and sort of the vibes that I've gotten from some other scouts that I respect. So we'll report on those guys and a lot of prospects that you should have your eyes on for the Falcons as well today. So we will get started, of course, with the defensive side, and I also have the latest updates on the guys that the Falcons have been interested in, so I'll try to point that out as well when I get to guys where there's some overlap. But starting with the defensive side of the ball, the edge group was pretty impressive, right? We did see some really nice performances from guys like Adi Adebawore from Northwestern, who basically bested Trayvon Walker's testing at 282 pounds, which of course is 10 pounds heavier than Trayvon Walker weighed in last year. Adebawore did finish with that 985 RAS, which is elite, of course. Just absurd numbers, right? 449 40 at 282 pounds. 37.5-inch vertical, 10.5-foot broad jump. Sort of an interesting prospect, right? Heavier edge rusher, played a lot inside at the Senior Bowl, did a great job there in that role, so I think he's somebody that could have that sort of inside-outside role. I think Adebawore has probably elevated himself into that late first, early second conversation. I think this is now a player that the Falcons should have on their radar with their second-round pick, absolutely, because I think he can be that sort of Cam Jordan type of player. He's got good length. Really has checked all the boxes with this pre-draft process, and I think he's been one of the biggest risers overall at any position. So, very impressed by Adebaware's testing there. We also saw, of course, the Georgia boy, Nolan Smith, put on just absolutely crazy testing, which was expected considering he's a smaller guy, right? He's, 6'2", 238. So, he's going to test better than the huge guys, but at the same time, 4.3 940 at 238 is still incredible. 1.52 10-yard split, which for those that don't know what the 10-yard split is, it's the first 10 yards of the 40, and it's probably the more important metric for most of these players. So that 10-yard split is really good as well. He also jumped 41.5 in the vertical and 10'8" in the broad, and those are all 98th percentile or better. Nolan Smith, of course, just had a great day. Some other guys, Isaiah Foskey tested out really well, came in 6'5", 264 with 34-inch arms. That, really, I think, increases his appeal to both 3-4 and 4-3 base defenses. 4.58 40, 10'5" broad jump. So he did a great job. Derek Hall as well was in the mid nines in terms of his RAS at 9.23. And then Lucas Van Ness was the other guy that was sort of being buzzy to the Falcons at 8, and he did the same thing, right? Very similar testing to those other top guys as just an elite athlete. He's got more of the size profile as opposed to like a Foskey. Well, not all that different from Foskey, actually. He measured in really well, but, Derek Hall's a little bit on the smaller side. Nolan Smith obviously on the smaller side, and Adebawore is sort of his own thing. So more of that bigger end. The one guy that sort of came out of nowhere was Yaya Diaby from Louisville. I haven't really watched him at all, but tested out extremely well, right? 984 RAS, which is relative athletic score. If I haven't explained that to folks, and I will do that in just a second. But Yeah, I mean 4.5 140 at 6'3", 263 is crazy. Really good jumps. He's a day 3 guy, just a toolsy guy. The Falcons have met with Diaby as well. We did have that confirmed. So, this is a guy that definitely should be on your radar as someone that the team could consider in that sort of, day 3 range as just a high upside project type of edge rusher. So that's one to keep in mind. The team has also met officially with Lucas Van Ness, Tyree Wilson, Keon White, and Miles Murphy at the combine. None of those are surprising. They're all the top edge guys, but notable to point out for you guys. And before we get on to the next group, which is the interior guys, I did want to make sure to explain what RAS is in case you haven't listened to the show or hear me talk about it before. RAS is called his relative athletic score. It was created by Kent LaPlatte, Math Bomb on Twitter. It's ras.football is the site. And basically what it is it's a way to quantify the holistic picture of a player's athletic testing. So it takes the size, it takes all of the measurements that the player does, and it gives you numbers for each measurement, and then a composite that sort of calculates everything and weights it appropriately, and gives you that final RAS number, which is the 3 digits. And you can basically translate that to a percentile that athlete is. So, for instance, Adeboare's 985 RAS makes him a 98.5 percentile athlete overall. So absolutely elite, top 1.5% athlete. It goes all the way down the board. So like a 7.50 would be a 75th percentile athlete. 5.00 would be, 50th percentile athlete, and so on. So it's pretty easy to understand. But for those that don't know, quick interlude there. The interior guys, Jalen Redmond from Oklahoma. I think we all thought he would be athletic, but he really did impress, right? Came in at 6'2", 291, so definitely on the small side, but hit that 4.81 in the 40, which is crazy. The 34.5-inch vertical, 9'8" broad jump, which are all above 97th percentile, and hit that 7'3" second 3 cone, which is crazy for someone that big. Gervon Dexter from Florida, Brian Brzee, were also above a 9, so really good athletes. I was pretty surprised by Dexter being such a good athlete. I mean, I knew he was above average, but that testing definitely gives him a higher ceiling than I was expecting. And then, of course, Keanu Benton came in at 8.65, which is really good. Obviously, he's someone that's definitely a day 2 pick now. Zach Pickens from South Carolina, 8.97. So very good there as well. Linebacker, we did have a really, really surprising one in Iowa's Jack Campbell, who probably on tape is like the best linebacker overall, right? But he ended up coming in with that 9.98 RAS, which means, top 0.2 percentile athlete, as well as him having this great tape. And I think he's probably going to be the first linebacker taken now because he does have the size that will make him appeal to any system. 6'4", 249. He's sort of a Troy Anderson-like figure at linebacker. Not quite as fast, but very good and well-rounded overall. Just came in and just really blew the doors off at his size. 4.65 40 is well above average. It's almost 80th percentile for a linebacker, so that's pretty fast. He did also hit an absurd 6.74 3 cone at 249, which is just crazy. Really impressive lateral mobility, change of direction skills. So he probably has worked himself into that top of the linebacker group. The other guy that could be there also is like Trenton Simpson from Clemson, who also had a really good workout. I mean, I think everyone was expecting him to do it. He did hit that 4.43, so he's an elite speed range linebacker. But, Campbell has the size advantage, so I do wonder if Campbell will end up going first as a result. But Simpson also up there. Other guys, Owen Pappoe from Auburn did hit the fastest 40 of any linebacker with that 4.39, which I believe the only linebacker to run faster might be Deion Jones. So I believe Deion Jones ran a 4.35 at his pro day or something like that. And then Yasir Abdullah from Louisville, who I haven't watched, did come in with a 9.47 RAS. And then my guy Diane Henley from the Senior Bowl, he also had a great workout, 8.89 overall there. And then finally we get to the cornerbacks, which I'm going to take a drink here real quick because there's a lot of cornerbacks to get to. This is maybe the most athletic cornerback class I can remember, and we've had a lot of really good ones. But this class just absolutely blew the doors off the combine. So, there's one guy at the top that's not surprising, and Christian Gonzalez. He came in with a 9.96 RAS, which is actually not surprising. I think we all knew he was probably going to be one of the top testers, if not the top tester. 6'1", 197, checks the size box, 32-inch arms, all that stuff. Then he hit that 4.38 40, which is great. 41.5-inch vertical, amazing. 11-foot 1-inch broad jump, amazing. I'm sort of inclined to think that if Gonzalez does fall to 8, that he's probably going to be the Falcons' pick. Considering all the buzz that the Falcons have around being interested in defensive backs at this point. Take from that what you will, but I do think that he's probably close to the top of the board for the Falcons at that 8th overall pick. But the actual cornerback who came in and tested better than Christian Gonzalez was actually Deonte Banks from Maryland, who is a very good corner in his own right. He was, I think, more that sort of late first, early day 2 projection, but this workout probably lifts him into that like mid first conversation. A little bit smaller at 6 foot 197, but just 4.35 40, 1.49 10-yard split, which is really crazy fast. A 42-inch vertical and 11-foot 4-inch broad jump, which is one of the biggest broad jumps I have seen. It might be the biggest at the combine. I haven't checked that stat, but if not, it's probably up there. So Deonte Banks absolutely blew it up. DJ Turner from Michigan had a great workout. Came in a little bit smaller than expected at 5'11", 178, but definitely blazed the fastest 40 of any player at the combine with a 4.26. That's crazy. 1.47 10-yard split, also nuts, and had some good jumps too. So a little on the smaller side. I think he might get pegged as more of that slot defender now, depending on teams' preferences. It's not egregious at 5'11", but it is on the shorter side. I do think he's probably worked his way into that sort of fringe first-round conversation. And then just like so many other guys. I mean, I could spend a whole show probably talking about the corners, but Riley Moss from Iowa ended up with a 9.89 RAS. Julius Brents from Kansas State, one of the big winners from the Senior Bowl, absolutely crushed his workout. He came in with a 9.82 RAS. This guy is 6'3", 198, and he has 34-inch arms, so huge, long, amazing length. I mean, he has the same, I think, size arms as Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher. He then ran a 4.53, which is really, really good at that size. Hit that 1.57 10-yard split, and then hit this amazing 6.63 3-cone. That's just an elite time for any corner. And he hit 11'6" in the broad jump, which is just absolutely crazy. So explosive, great lateral mobility, and good long speed. Not elite long speed. We're not talking, the guy that's going to match up with your speedsters necessarily, but that 4.53 is not a bad number at all. And he's huge. So, definitely that matchup type of guy for those bigger receivers. Darius Rush came up with a 9.73. He ran in the mid 4.3s. Jacorian Bennett from Maryland. I didn't really see a lot from him at the Senior Bowl, but he did hit that 4.3 40 and turned in some really, really impressive testing. 5'11", 188, kind of a smaller guy, but as a day 3 guy, you like to see that testing and that upside when you're trying to sift through all those guys. And then, of course, I have to shout out the, 3 of the top guys, Joey Porter Jr., Keely Ringo, Cam Smith. All of these guys came in with really good testing. I mean, Porter had a 9.63, Keely Ringo 9.61, and Cam Smith 9.57. All had elite testing. All did a really good job. I think Porter was 7th in RAS, Ringo was 9th, and Cam Smith was 11th. So all, really good testing. It's sort of crazy that these guys with like mid to high 9s are like this far down the list in terms of the most impressive testers. It's kind of crazy to me, but that's just how deep and good this class is. And corner, I mean, like I said, probably could do a whole show on corner. Safeties a little quieter, but we did see both of my big winners from the Senior Bowl have like a really good workouts at the combine as well. Daniel Scott had the best testing of any safety with the 987 RAS. He came in at 6'1", 208, which is great. 4'4", 540, really good for a safety. 6'7", 3 cone. Again, that's elite time. Hit some great jumps and 22 reps on the bench, which is why like Scott is such a weird prospect, because he did struggle a lot with tackling in college, but it doesn't seem like it's an endurance or a strength thing with him. So I drafted him in the 7th round, and I think the most recent mock I did after the Senior Bowl, probably not going to be able to get him there anymore after this workout. Sidney Brown from Illinois was the other guy. And, he also came in big, with a lot of weight, 5'10", 211, ended with a 9'6", came with a 4'4", 40, 151, 10-yard split, and then hit 40.5 on the vertical, which is great. So, he's day 2 pick for sure. His tape is better than Scott's. So another guy that I do want to shout out as well, Jordan Battle from Alabama, actually came in as the most athletic of all the Alabama DBs. 6'1", 209, good weigh-in, good size. 4'5", 540, which is good for a safety. And he just, I think, sort of separated himself from all the other top safeties who had like decent testing, but none of them really stood out with like elite testing. So I think he may have sort of separated himself as like maybe he's the guy that's going to go earlier because of that athletic ceiling. So just something to keep in mind there. Moving over to the offensive side of the ball, not going to spend too much time on quarterbacks because you guys know my opinion. I really don't think the Falcons are going to end up with one, but the one I have to talk about, of course, is Anthony Richardson from Florida with that perfect 10 RAS, aka the most athletic player at his position in combine testing history. Richardson came in 6'4", over 6'4", 244, hit a 40.5 vertical, which is a combine record for a quarterback. Then hit a 10-foot 9-inch broad jump, which is another record for a quarterback. Then he went and ran 4.43 in the 40, which is almost a record for quarterbacks. I believe Lamar Jackson is one of the only guys who's faster. And a 1.53 10-yard split, which again is almost a record. So just absolutely crazy testing. I believe his closest comps are like Dante Culpepper, UCF legend, and Cam Newton. So he's probably going to get a boost. Like I have Anthony Richardson as quarterback 3. I think that's probably where he should be drafted. I think he's a better prospect than Will Levis. You guys know my thoughts on Will Levis. But maybe some team is tempted to even take him above CJ Stroud because of that athletic ceiling. I would still take Stroud over him, but I do think Richardson is, if there's a quarterback in this class that the Falcons end up with, I would probably want it to be Richardson because I think he fits this offense so well. And we know that the Falcons did officially meet with Richardson, Stroud, and Will Levis at the combine. Not so happy about the Will Levis one, but they're going to have to meet with everybody. I mean, that's just how it goes with quarterbacks. So, take from that what you will. With the running backs, there's a lot of good ones in this class. It's a very athletic running back class. Of course, Bijan Robinson came in, 5'11", 215, really good size. I actually think the height being under 6 foot is generally a good thing for running backs. I think, there's a point where it gets to be too small, Deuce Vaughn, like 5'6", right? Or 5'5". But I think that like 5'10", 11 is really the perfect height for running backs. They're a little bit lower to the ground, a little bit more compact. So I actually don't knock him for not being, taller. And then came in with that 4.4 640, which is in the 98th percentile. Hit some really good jumps as well, and just looks so smooth. He's just clearly the best running back in this class. And then the other guy I wanted to shout out was Chase Brown from Illinois, a guy that I've sort of really liked for the Falcons as a potential speed guy to complement Tyler Algier. And he came in, a little over like 5'9.5", 209, good weigh in. Hit a 4.43 in the 40. That's great. Jumped 40 inches, 10'7" in those 2 jumps. Just a really great athlete, really fast. And I just think he's a pretty good running back too. So he's a guy I would definitely keep my eyes on for the Falcons in this class. So that's another one. And then, of course, got to shout out Devon Achane, who ran the fastest 40 at 4.32. I know some were expecting him to run in the 4.2s. He did not actually get there, but that 4.32 is still extremely impressive. Jahmyr Gibbs also ran a great 40. So impressive stuff there. At wide receiver, there was actually some pretty surprising names at the top. Starting with one that I haven't really watched at all. Bryce Ford Wheaton from West Virginia ended up with the highest RAS at 9.96. Very impressive. 6'4", 221. So you can already tell Arthur Smith is salivating. But ran a 4.38 at that size, which is crazy. Hit 41 inches in the vertical and 10'9" in the broad. Pretty tremendous. And ran above average agilities as well. That 4.15 short shuttle is in the 80th percentile. So this is clearly a really good wide receiving prospect in terms of his athleticism, like elite size, speed combination. I believe his closest comp is Calvin Johnson. When you're that big and fast, then that's what's going to happen. Of course, Calvin Johnson remains the perfect 10 at wide receiver, and probably will as long, until we get somebody else like that. Let's see, who else did we have here? We had a couple of really impressive wide receivers in this group. Another one is a guy that I was a big fan of at the Senior Bowl, sent to the Falcons in like the 5th round of a mock draft. That's Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss. He came in and finished with a 9.93. I mean, I thought he was decently athletic, but I didn't think he was that great. And the reason is he's 6'2", 220, jumped 39.5 in the vert, elite, 4.46 40, which is really good for him at that size. I mean, it's not Bryce Ford Wheaton insane 4.38, but 4.46 at 220 is really good. I mean, that 4.46 is still 83rd percentile for wide receivers. So really impressive testing there. We also saw another couple of size speed guys with Andre Yosevas from Princeton, hit the 9.92 RAS at 6'3", 205. Again, really good size. He ran a 4.43, crazy fast. Also hit a 6'8", 5'3" cone at that size, which is really impressive. Jumped almost 40 inches in the vert. He's obviously another great athlete. And then another guy that I haven't watched at all who turned in some really impressive testing with a 9.91. These guys are really splitting hairs with those athleticism numbers. Matt Landers from Arkansas, 6'4", over 6'4", 200. Ran a 4.37 and jumped 10'10" in the broad jump. That is pretty insane numbers as well. So there's some really great athletes in this class that could just be really good guys to swing at on day 3, just to add that sort of athleticism to your room and see what happens. I definitely wouldn't mind taking a swing on some of these guys. Excuse me. So at tight end, we did get a perfect 10 this year. We had a perfect 10 last year in Jelani Woods. He's getting bumped to 9.99 now after Zach Kuntz's testing. I believe it's Kuntz, Kuntz. So Zach Kuntz, Old Dominion tight end at 6'7", almost 6'7.5", 255. He ran a 4.55, which is nuts. Did a 6.87 3-cone, also nuts, and jumped 40 inches in the vert. So absolutely crazy athletic testing for Zach Kuntz. We also had another guy that I have to shout out, which is Darnell Washington from Georgia, of course, with that 9.85 RAS. Came in at almost 6'7", 264, and then hit that 4.64 in the 40, which is pretty crazy at that size. A 4.08 short shuttle, which is elite, 98th percentile agilities for Washington. And then he, of course, jumped that 10'2" in the broad. Just insane testing for Washington. You could see how strong he was pushing that sled during the combine. It looked like it was easy for him. And you watch those other tight ends do it, and it's like they're struggling to move it at all. Darnell Washington, definitely a guy that's rising up boards in a big way. On the offensive line, there was a few tackles in particular I wanted to highlight. BYU's Blake Freeland hit that 9.82 RAS, really good. Came in at almost 6'8", 6'7", and 7/8. I give it to him. He's 6'8", 302, nearly 34-inch arms, so checks that box. Believe he hit the combine record in the vert for an offensive lineman at 37 inches. Really impressive. Also hit that 10-foot broad jump, which is also extremely impressive. 4.98 40 at 6'8". Pretty crazy. 1.68 10-yard split. Awesome. And hit a 7.46 cone again at that size. Really, really impressive numbers there for Blake Freeland, who I had the Falcons taking in the 4th round, but this testing is probably again going to push him into day 2. Then there were the top guys, right? Like Darnell Wright, who finished with a 9.45 RAS, came in at 6'5", 333, again, nearly 34-inch arms, so checks that box. And then that 5.01 40, really, really good. 9-foot 7-inch broad jump, also excellent. Did a great job in his testing. Then, of course, we have Broderick Jones, who came in at over 6'5", almost 6'5 and a half, 311 pounds, good weigh-in. Then he ran 4.97 at 311 at that size, which is really good. 1.74 10-yard split, also really good. And then, of course, hit a 30-inch vertical and a 9-foot broad jump, which are really good numbers for big offensive linemen like that. The thing with Broderick Jones is, almost 35-inch arms, terrific length, and 10.625-inch hands, just monster hands. So great job there by Broderick Jones. Only for him, of course, to be upstaged in the arm length competition by Paris Johnson Jr., who did come in. He did not actually do any 40 or agility testing, so he doesn't have a full RAS, but what he did do is come in at 6'6", 313, and then he measured in with 36.125, so over 36-inch arms, which is nuts. Like, I don't remember the last player who had over 36-inch arms, period. And then he proceeded to put up 29 reps on the bench with 36-inch arms, which is insane, because if you've ever benched, you have to fully extend your arm. So if you have long arms, you got to push it way further. So he has probably the longest arms of anyone in the class and still put up a 90th percentile bench press number. Insanely impressive. The one thing he did do was jump the broad, and he hit 9 foot 2 inches, which is in the 87th percentile. So I think we all know Paris Johnson Jr. is a great athlete, but that size is crazy. Like prototype, amazing length on the outside. So, you're going to see Paris Johnson probably, as impressive as Broderick Jones' testing was, that arm length for Paris Johnson Jr. is probably going to put him firmly at offensive tackle 1. And then it should be mentioned that Peter Skoronski ended up weighing in with, I think, like 32-inch arms or something like that. Let me get the final number there. Yeah, so 32 1/4 inch arms for Peter Skoronski, and that is like a full inch under most teams' thresholds for offensive tackle. I think this is probably going to have Skoronski evaluated as a guard by most NFL teams. He's also just 6'4", so he's a little on the smaller side. Did come in at 313, which is a good weight for him, and tested out well, certainly. But that arm length is a big concern. It's really short for a tackle. Like, really, it's not just like a little bit under the threshold. It's really short for a tackle. So that's something that it's up to every team to sort of decide what they're going to do with that information, right? Like, are they going to actually evaluate him as a tackle or not? But I know the guy that often gets comped to Skoronski in terms of another guy with shorter arms who, was questioned, can you play tackle? That's Rashawn Slater, another Northwestern tackle. Rashawn Slater had 33-inch arms, so a full 3/4 of an inch longer, and he was criticized for having short arms. Skoronski at 32.25. I think that's probably going to force him to play guard. Now, I don't think that he can never play tackle in a pinch, but that's going to be really difficult for him to overcome at the NFL level. Maybe he can. It could be a possibility, but that arm length is significantly lower than thresholds. So that's everyone has to make their own call there, I guess. But I think for me, I'm going to evaluate him as a guard going forward. I think it's just going to be putting him in a disadvantageous spot by playing him at tackle in the NFL. Just my opinion there. But guys, just over 30 minutes. We got through a lot of names there, a lot of players. The Falcons, of course, have met with a lot of these guys. More, buzz will come out about them meeting with guys. I know that they met with Skoronski and Broderick Jones officially. We'll see if anything else comes out about the other guys they've met with. But I think they've also met with a lot of corners. Travius Hodges-Tomlinson from TCU is really came in small, but interesting. They met with a lot of safeties. Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M, Brian Branch from Alabama, Jamie Robinson from Florida State's another guy I like a lot. Didn't have the best testing, but so they're doing their due diligence on a lot of guys, looking into a lot of these players, and we're going to hear more and more over the coming days and weeks. But that's a good starter for you guys, sort of trying to dissect all of the information that comes out of the combine, because it's really like a fire hose of stuff coming right at you. So hopefully this helps you get an idea of some of the guys that really impressed athletically for your own evaluations or just your curiosity. So thank you for watching today's episode of the Falcoholic Podcast. We'll be back on Wednesday night for another Falcoholic Live, breaking down top free agents for the Falcons on offense that the team could pursue. So keep an eye out for that on Wednesday night. You can follow me, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter. You can follow the show at Falcoholic Live. Please do like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods. We appreciate that a lot. And if you're interested in supporting us, you can do so at patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. You get access to free, well, it's not free, obviously, but you do get ad-free versions of all the podcasts, as well as early access to all the podcasts. Usually it's about 8 to 12 hours early, maybe 24 hours early or more, depending. And of course, you get our eternal gratitude, which is priceless, right? But again, guys, thank you so much for listening, for watching. We'll see you next time on the Falcoholic Podcast. Have a great day, folks.